Now that I know a lot more about it, I wouldn't be surprised today to notice, but I started my newsletter on March 1st, 2022, and my newsletter is really, really short. It's just 3 sentences a day, my daily newsletter. Sometimes it's a maximum of like 30 words kind of thing. And that literally changed the whole path of what I was doing with Minimalist Hustler, my whole path in my life.
Change on your mind. We've got stories that'll help you find the tools, tips, and strategies to guide you through with ease. Career change playbooks here, helping you shift without fear.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks for joining us today to share your career change playbook. I'm excited to learn more about you and the story of how you became the Minimalist Hustler. If it's cool with you, we'll cannonball right into it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, Craig.
Cool. If you could take us back then to your once upon a time, the beginning of your story of your career change, what were you doing before you became the Minimalist Hustler?
So I spent almost 20 years working for a logistics company here locally, and Minimalist Hustler started where near the end of that journey, the last 3 years or more or less of it. So I spent basically half my life working for one company in logistics.
Thanks. Now, can you tell us about a specific time or event that you would consider the catalyst behind your career change story?
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't necessarily something specific that said I had to change careers, but I've been making money online since the mid '90s, even before I started working in logistics. Through my hobby of hockey cards, so buying, selling, trading hockey cards online, and that led me to like kind of develop some skills with web design early days and stuff like that. I always kind of knew I wouldn't. I wanted to work for myself and not just work for myself, but like kind of work by myself. I'm a little bit of a control freak, so I like to have control over everything. So the solopreneur, before solopreneur became a word, was kind of what I was looking for without necessarily knowing it. And so at first, I thought I would basically build, design, and manage websites for people, and I did that for the better part of a decade. And while I enjoyed making websites, making them for other people wasn't enjoyable for me. So it's kind of there where I had to like kind of decide where do I want to go with this. And I got a little bit tired of dealing with customers and their demands and stuff like that. So that's kind of what led to the birth of Minimalist Hustler. And it was actually a New Year's resolution in 2020 to find ways to make money without dealing with customers. And I think it's in February 2020 that I registered the minimalisthustler.com domain. And, that's where that all started.
Awesome. Now, can you tell us about any obstacles or challenges that you can remember from those early days?
So, I mean, the first obstacle and most obvious one and common one, I believe, is the financial aspect of it, right? So it wasn't like it was a switch I could flip on and be like, okay, now I'm for myself and I'm making enough money on my terms. I mean, I could have done it through I had my own web consulting firm and I was making enough money to do that. But I'm thankful to this day that I didn't, because then I think I would have been stuck a little bit more. Whereas I got lucky with my corporate job. I was, had a lot of flexibility. I had been working from home since 2012 when my first son was born. And so it gave me a lot of flexibility, but the obstacle was really to try and limit myself to make money on my terms. Freelancing and consulting uh, has always been easy for me to make money, but it's not something I enjoy doing. So it was just trying to like find ways to make enough money that I wouldn't need to depend on my job and, do things that I enjoy.
Thank you. Now, because we're using the playbook analogy, we often think about who's on the sidelines. So, the people that were there to coach or mentor, support, even to be our cheerleaders along our journey. Who would you say were key people on your sidelines?
Yeah, so I think my number one cheerleader and support is definitely my wife. I mean, without her, you know, supporting me and encouraging me to follow the paths that I followed, I don't think half of this would have been possible, especially in the last year or so. So from that perspective, she's definitely my number one fan and cheerleader. In terms of the actual business aspect, one person I often turn to is Josh Spector. He runs a pretty big newsletter called 40 Interested, and he's just, when it comes to marketing and online or even offline, he just sees it differently. To me, he's a genius, and so I've turned to him a lot for advice and stuff like that.
Nice. Now, Jamie, I know that you're a bit of a coach and a mentor um, on the sidelines of a community that you facilitate using the school platform. Are there any communities that you were a part of that you can remember really helped to move things along with your career change?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been in and out of online communities since online communities probably started existing. I mean, even in the early days of message boards and America Online forums and stuff like that, mostly related to hockey cards and hockey stuff. But then slowly over the years turned into a lot of the making money online world and stuff like that. Before I launched mine, I was in a few school communities. There's one by Mark Thompson, the Inner Circle, it's called. It's a great online marketing community. There's another one by Evan Kelly. I think now he's changed the name. It's called Newsletter Alchemist, I believe. So and I was on also like probably hundreds, if not thousands, of communities over the past 20 years. On Discord, Facebook, you name it. But it's just something about school just made it so much more fun, enjoyable, and simple.
Right on. Thanks. Um, I don't want to get us too off track, but I have to ask because I'm a bit of a hockey fan as well and used to collect sports cards. Who is or what is the hockey card that you cherish the most and that you would never part with?
So one that I'll never part with. I mean, the easy answer, and if you have kids that play hockey, it's your kids' hockey cards, right? So every year we get the kids' hockey cards. So those will never go anywhere, and they're the most coveted ones. I used to collect Team Canada, and I had this really unique, complete set of autographed patches that spelt out Team Canada, and I had it all framed and all that. But I sold that a few years ago, and in my becoming more minimalist in my life as well. So I do still collect Sarah Nurse Team Canada cards. So that's my biggest collection right now is her cards.
Right on. That's awesome. Sarah Nurse is a hero in our household as well. Um, to get us back on track with your career change story, what would you say? What was your kind of overarching strategy or your game plan, or did you have one? So when you set out on this journey to kind of change careers, did you have it mapped out in a series of steps and goals, and kind of as you check them off, you set new goals and took it on the direction it was laid out?
Yeah, it's my winning strategy, if you want to call it that, is definitely trial and error. I'm very big on just doing stuff, doing it a lot. I believe quantity is more important than quality to start. So for example, one of my successful ways of earning online is through what they call low and no content books on Amazon. So like journals and planners and workbooks, and I have over 500 books right now, and about 400 of them never sold a single copy, kind of thing. So it's really just like just doing stuff in terms of quantity, one, to learn, and two, to see what works or doesn't work, and then slowly over time transition the quantity down to increase the quality until you get something that's that will work. Now that I know a lot more about it, I wouldn't be surprised today to notice, but I started my newsletter on March 1st, 2022, and my newsletter is really, really short. It's just 3 sentences a day, my daily newsletter. Sometimes it's a maximum of like 30 words kind of thing. And that literally changed the whole path of what I was doing with Minimalist Hustler, my whole path in my life. And it's just something that's done. It sounds so simple and stupid, but it's something that's done so much in terms of revenue and profit, but also in bringing clarity and organization to everything that I was doing. So like everything gravitates around that newsletter now, and it makes everything so much easier.
Right on. Thanks. I should tell you that I really enjoy receiving your minimalist newsletter every day. It is a nice treat. I look forward actually to getting it in my email inbox because my inbox, like most people's, is just so noisy and full of clutter. So many things that you have to scroll through and decide is there something in here I'm interested in, and most of the times not. And it gets just cluttered up. And then your newsletter comes in, it's so clean, maximizes white space. It's just got the three little headlines that can pique your interest, and you can choose to read the stories attached to those links or not. If you do read all three, it takes max 4 minutes, which like that's super efficient, and they're always high value. So of those three links, I would say at least one, two, oftentimes all three of them are something that I enjoy that you've shared with us. So I think that format of a newsletter is just totally invaluable these days.
Yeah, that's it. That's my goal. So another part of my strategy is to do things I enjoy. Like I have to enjoy doing them, but also in a way that I know I would enjoy consuming them. So like I write short books because I like to read short books. I write short blog posts, and the same thing with newsletters. There's so many newsletters I get, and they're people that I love, and they write amazing things, but it's 1,000, 2,000 words, and next thing you know, you get 3 newsletters like that a day or 4 newsletters a day. You don't have time to read them all, right? So, it was really just to take it the way I would love to see it and how it's laid out, how I would like to. And, there's over 4 billion people now, I believe, that have online access. So it just, there's people out there for every format. So if you like long form, go for it. You like short form, do what's good for you, and the audience will build around it.
But getting back to your career change playbook, let's think about the defense that you've set up. So we often think of making moves and strategies and things that we've done to kind of move things ahead in our career change paths, but oftentimes we forget to mention all of those things that we do that are kind of defensive in terms of protecting things that are important, our non-negotiables, like making sure that we have some financial security, a safety net, that we're looking after our family commitments if we have a family, as well as looking after our own personal health. Can you tell us a little bit about the defensive moves that you made along your path?
Yeah, so I mean the number one thing is you have to figure out your financial situation, and not just what it is today, but what you expect it to be, and to have like safety in that. So, if you're gonna leave your job to start something on your own, you need to make sure that you're comfortable with what you have in your reserves, whether that be 6 months, a year, 5 years. Everybody's different. Everybody, needs something. One thing that really helped me is that in my 2020 resolution, one of the things I decided to try and do was to do food delivery through the apps and different things like that, TaskRabbit and all that. And what that taught me was that if ever I get stuck, there's a easy way to generate some extra income to compensate for whatever may happen. Fortunately, I haven't needed to do that. I haven't done it since 2021, but at least I know there's like a safety blanket in there. So I mean, that's finding your safety is important. Everybody's financial situation and their relationship with money is different. Like I'll be okay, if even if I was living paycheck to paycheck, whereas my wife, if she doesn't have, at least 6 months, if not a year's worth of paychecks saved away, it'll bother her. So it's everybody's different. So you got to figure out what works for you. The last thing you want to do is while you're building something is cut corners or do things you don't want to do because you need to get that extra income quicker. So it's this is why I tell people it's important to follow your passion, and people think that's cheesy, but if you're gonna really want to succeed at something, you need to put in the time, the effort, the energy, and if you don't enjoy it, you're going to burn yourself out. So that's not to say that you still don't need, a certain balance in life. I have two young kids that play hockey, and I coach their hockey teams, and we have friends and family, and there's all that. So the way I kind of manage things is when the kids are at school, my wife is working, I go full on in what I'm doing online, and then I work in the pockets around that. So a lot of the stuff I could do from my phone. So, when we go to the arena, we usually end up going 30 minutes before. The kids got to get dressed, put their equipment on. So I've got time there. The same thing after the game. I'll be in, McDonald's drive-through line, and I'll be, answering Substack notifications or emails, or, I'm so thankful that, the phones have come such a long way that you could do so much from it. So I kind of work when there's nothing going on. So I love working, and I always want to get back to it, but I won't sacrifice things that need to get done or things that are fun to do just to get back to it, kind of. So my whole thing with Minimalist Hustler is basically falls in line with the slow, safe play. So it's really, I not to say I haven't done, some somewhat drastic moves. I just did one, I think, by leaving ConvertKit to go to Substack, and but that said, nothing is really of what I've done I would consider a drastic move. I mean, I don't want the stress, so this is why I don't sell high ticket items. Everything is low ticket. It's very, you know, when I started Minimalist Hustler originally, it was to have no contact with customers. So I have a ton of print on demand designs. I have a ton of KDP books, like I mentioned before. All these things are unbranded. They're not linked to me in any way, and they generate income. And that to me is as safe as it gets. It fluctuates in income, but there's no stress involved, right? So it's great. But then with time, I kind of like enjoyed talking about doing all that and everything else I was doing. So that's when I started Minimalist Hustler, and even then it's very transactional. So I sell books, I sell the community access and challenges and stuff like that. But on the odd occasion where somebody's not happy or didn't like their purchase, it's no problem. It's right away a refund, and everybody's happy again, and there's no stress involved. It's not like we're talking about thousands of dollars here. And I would rather, I'm the opposite of most people. When you look at Twitter and stuff, they'll be like, would you rather have 1,000 customers at $1 or 10 customers at $100? I'll take those 1,000 at $1 every day, any day.
Yeah, I certainly do see a lot of that kind of advice out there, where it's try to find a small amount of people that will pay a lot of money. And I appreciate you taking time to kind of present a different point of view that sort of balances that, because it isn't appropriate or I guess applicable to all of us to go after those high ticket sells. And it's also kind of risky, because if you invest in a small group of people and selling them and retaining them, and then one of them walks, like, that's a huge loss. Whereas if you have kind of smaller ticket items, but you have a bigger pool of people, if somebody moves on, or they've come to the end of your journey with them, it's not a huge loss, and you can replace it, I think, a little bit easier. So I do appreciate you presenting a balanced opinion there.
That's it. It reminds me too of what you see on Twitter. They're like, I'm not sure if you've ever seen this meme before, but they're like, the customer that pays you $5,000 is harassing you every day, and the customer that pays you $500,000 doesn't care. I mean, that's great, but that's not reality at all.
Yeah, I've seen that for sure. Just wondering if you could think back to the early days. Were there any particular obstacles or challenges that you encountered that were a little bit tougher to get around, and that you wouldn't mind sharing, just kind of what they were and how you got around them?
Well, I mean, there definitely was before Minimalist Hustler. So I've done many things before that. There's two in particular that come to mind. Back in the late 2000, let's say 2007 to 2011, before my first son was born, I had a ton of niche websites that were doing pretty well. But then as soon as my son was born, my time just shrunk away between my corporate job and between having a newborn and everything involved in that. So that slowly kind of went away, and I didn't really have the time, energy, or motivation to like kind of push through on that, which was unfortunate because I think if had I continued with those, it would be a life changer at this point. Um, but I was also at the same time running my web consulting agency, and that was bringing in more money at the time. So sadly, I chose the money path rather than the smart play. So that was kind of, unfortunate. And then when it came time to give up the web consulting agency and all that, it was kind of, Minimalist Hustler was not necessarily a sure thing, although it was from what I wanted to do more than doing the things for money. So that was kind of like, going up and down on whether I should do it or not. And should I keep so at first I kept the agency for I think the first year and a half or so. And then I decided, seeing the potential I had with Minimalist Hustler, to go all in on that.
Cool. Now, it must be rewarding to see people taking up the challenges that you put out there or the sprints, seeing them kind of engage with those and have fun doing it and learn, and just seeing kind of what comes out of it when you throw those things out there. I think you might come up with an idea and put it together and then put it out there, and you may wonder, is anyone going to take this on, or will it land or not? But then to see so many people respond so positively to the things that you put out there, and really engage and have fun, and to tell you that online, that's got to be, I would think, somewhat satisfying.
Yeah, it feels really good. And honestly, like, if so, I had started a community once before during Minimalist Hustler, probably in 2021, I think it was, with Evan Kelly. We did it together, and it worked great at first, but it wasn't. It was on Discord, and I think that was part of the problem, is that it wasn't very motivating to do, inspiring to do. And we started doing some challenges there, and sprints, the short challenges, and it worked well. People liked it, but it didn't last as much. I find school makes it, with the gamification, it helps, and I give out rewards and stuff, and I host contests that are related to the challenges. So I think all that helps, but it's also like these challenges, these sprints. Again, it comes from my perspective of like, I need to be consistent on Substack or on Medium. So why not help others do the same thing while I'm doing it for myself? So a lot of it comes from that. Like, I'd say 90% of what I do for Minimalist Hustler, whether it be the books, the newsletter, the community, the challenges, is all from what I need for me at some point, and it knowing that it could help me tells me that it could help others. So it all comes from that.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, I love that approach that you take, where everything kind of fits in with each other. So you're doing something over here, but that links to something over here, which feeds something over here, and it just kind of, it makes sense what you're doing, and that things are connected. I think it's super impactful. I think it's super efficient. Fits with the minimalist approach for sure. I have to admit, I learned something from you in an interview that you did with Christina God, where you and Evan Kelly were on talking about your different approaches to your newsletters and your minimalist products and community work. In that interview, Evan Kelly had mentioned kind of how he uses his products in his newsletter to set up his sales funnel. And then you had responded by saying, that your approach was to use more of a flywheel model. Now, that was something I hadn't heard of before, so I did have to Google it and got a kind of a basic understanding, as good as you can from reading something on Google search results. But do you mind sharing, just because I think it's fascinating, and I think it's just a good way to look at content development. Do you mind sharing what your perspective is on what a flywheel is, and how you put that to use?
Yeah, so my most common flywheel, like, I have multiple now, but the most common one that I've spoken about, and that I think applies to most people, is a what I call the newsletter, blog, book flywheel. So typically you'll start on the blog and you'll write a blog post, and then you'll promote it in the newsletter, and then you can compile all the blog posts into a book. But what you also want to do is you want to make sure that in the book you're promoting your blog and you're promoting your newsletter. In the newsletter you're promoting the blog and the book, and on the blog you're promoting. So basically you're using platforms that have their own audiences. Is ideally what you want. So I'm very much, I've thrown platform risk out the window. People will tell you about platform risk, and yes, there is risk, just like there's risk with anything, but it's not as scary or as risky as people make it out to seem. Like, as long as you back up your content, whether a platform shuts down, which rarely ever happens, you have your content you could bring somewhere else. It's not much of a problem. So, I like to outline a book of what I want to write in the book, and then for each chapter, write a blog post, promote that blog post in my newsletter, and also on the blog promote my newsletter, so they're both feeding into each other. And then once the book is done, I'll publish it on Amazon. Amazon has a huge audience, as you know, and in the book I'll also promote my blog and my newsletter. So all three platforms, Substack for the newsletter, Medium for my blog, and Amazon, have their own audiences. So that helps grow the audience, and they feed into each other. That helps sales and helps views and so on. That's the main one that most people come to me, I think, can use to make value of the most.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Um, that is definitely a very helpful model that I think will help a lot of people. It just makes sense. Like, it's funny, when you're going through it, it isn't necessarily like, you know, groundbreaking or earth shattering, but it is. Um, it just seems like an organic way to approach, what you put out there, and content development, where you're intentional in putting effort here, so that'll affect something over here. And I think it must be easy to, well, maybe not necessarily easy, but I think it must help when creating content, when it is kind of connected and it's all, kind of one train of thought, rather than having to switch gears and kind of just scatter, throw things around, and see what happens.
That's it. I mean, and I don't run paid ads, but if you did run paid ads, if you're doing the flywheel and I run paid ads, let's say on Amazon for the books, the more books that sell at the same time, it's more promotion for your newsletter and your blog, and vice versa if I run ads for my newsletter. So connecting everything together just compounds whatever money you invest, if you decide to invest money. And if you don't, it just compounds the time that you put into it.
So we've talked strategy and kind of the moves that you've made to kind of protect yourself during the career transition, as well as things to move forward with your career transition. What sort of things do you think you would say you need to continually practice and work on and learn? I'm interested to know how you stay up to date with innovations and new approaches, how you come up with ideas of things that you want to try. Do you set aside a certain amount of time each week or each month or quarter, where you're just dedicated to trying to learn new things and stay up to date, and think of strategies that you want to try next?
Yeah, I mean, so there's two things. One, I'll read. So I'm into what I call minimalist books, which is basically any book under 100 pages. So I read at least one of them every week. So I kind of take in knowledge that way. A lot of these minimalist books are nonfiction how-to books. They're very specific in what you're learning. So it's great. It's a great way to learn quickly. The second thing I do is I'm subscribed to, I gotta think now it's over 400 different newsletters. And while I don't read them all, I open them all, I skim most of them, and I'll consume what I need or what draws my eye from there. So a lot of my knowledge comes from other newsletters. And the third way is I like participating in challenges. So if other people host challenges and stuff like that, I'll get involved in that. And usually that leads me down a path of either meeting new people or discovering new content creators or publishers or writers.
Yeah. Now, I'm interested to know about your approach to content creation. Are you the kind of person that that creates, that writes, and publishes things? Ships things, gets it out the door and into people's hands, or at least in their line of vision, so they can read it, and then you're kind of watching to see what lands, what resonates well, what doesn't. Maybe checking out analytics or any kind of metrics that would indicate if things are doing well or if they're not, and then you're responding and changing your strategy and approach based on the things that you're seeing. Or is your approach to be a little bit more maybe methodical and write something and then let it sit as a draft, iterate on it overnight, push it out to maybe a small group of people, and then get a little bit of a test audience to see what they think of it, and then refining it before you ship it? Um, how do you go about putting content out there?
Yeah, no, I'm just, publish, 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 just put it out there. Um, Look at what works. I don't spend a lot of time diving into analytics and all that. And, I really think that, again, it rolls back to enjoying what you do. And, diving into analytics is not necessarily what I enjoy, but I mean, I will look at what's paying the most or what has the most views and stuff like that. And won't necessarily decide what I write next, but sometimes it'll be like, okay, well, I know that this is people are interested in this, so let's keep going on this more than anything. But yeah, it's definitely I don't plan. I try not to spend too much time on planning that. Rather, just focus on taking action, learning, taking more action, learning, and that's what I love about challenges. It's the equivalent of a course without having done nothing during the course. It's you learn while you're doing, and you make mistakes. It's going to happen. Everybody makes mistakes. It's not the end of the world. And more often than not, you'll feel worse about the mistake than anybody else will. Like most people won't even notice it. Just to give you an example, actually, on that. Sorry, I just published a book called 28 Day Substack Growth Challenge. So it's a book I published on Amazon, and I published it on Gumroad too and a few other places, and everywhere is fine except for if you went on Amazon and ordered the paperback copy. When I uploaded the paperback cover, I made a mistake, and instead of being 28-day Substack Growth Challenge, it's the 28-day X Growth Challenge, which is another book I have. I changed all the colors and everything, but forgot to change the name of the thing, and it published like that on Amazon. Thankfully, somebody was able to tell me about it, and I was able to change it before too many people had ordered it.
I appreciate you being vulnerable and willing to share your mistakes as well as your successes and your strategies and your tips. I think it speaks volumes, and I think it's super helpful for people who might be considering, a career change, or even how they want to go about producing content or doing things similar to what you do. I think it's important for them to have real people that are telling them real things, real experiences, and that includes the good with the bad. I applaud you for being willing to be honest and open and to sharing, when things maybe don't go as well as they should.
Yeah, I think it's important because now I can't imagine ever making that mistake again because I've made the mistake. But if I read any sort of materials on publishing, they would tell you make sure, make sure, make sure. But doing the actual mistake will teach me in an instant not to do it again. Whereas the other one, maybe I'll remember it, maybe I won't, and still make the mistake anyways. So, I've made thousands of mistakes, I'm sure, along the way, and this was just one that just happened last week. So it's fresh in my memory, and you learn from it, and then you get better.
All right. So if we return to the playbook analogy once more, and we think about our sports experiences, what would you say is coming up for you in the next inning, or maybe the next period? You seem like you're somebody that's always willing to try new things. You're not settled on just where things are at today, that you're looking to expand and grow and adapt. I feel like you normally have something in your mind that you're working towards, or working towards figuring out next. What would you say is coming up in your next inning or your next period?
Yeah, so it's I'm like I mentioned, I'm very heavily platform based. So I kind of go with the tides of where the platforms go. So when Minimalist Hustler, when I first started, I started on Instagram. It worked great until, Twitter looked more promising, and it was a lot better at first until that went downhill pretty quickly. From there, I went to Medium, which was doing great until that started going downhill. And now I've ConvertKit's been great. I was with them for 2.5 years, and I have zero complaints. It didn't go downhill or anything like that, but it's just there's a simplicity that Substack brings when it comes to growing and monetizing that appeals to what I'm doing and how I like to do things. So it just made sense to bring it over there, and I was able to combine a lot of what I was doing on Medium. So again, to simplify things, I'm very big on asking myself every week. I actually ask myself, how can I simplify things? And I always publish publicly what comes to mind that week or what I've done. And to me, it just made sense to take the move to Substack. So, in the next period or next inning, it depends on Substack and what other platforms show up and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, no matter the platforms, the bare essence of what I like to do is to help people, try and make some money online on their terms. Also have conversations about it. So, I'll always be producing some sort of content somewhere. I'll always be emailing people. Like, my favorite thing is my newsletter. So that's never, can't imagine a world where that goes away. And I've been enjoying publishing the books too. So, I would say the newsletters will always be there for sure, whether it's on Substack, ConvertKit, or somewhere else. The content itself can be hosted pretty much anywhere. I still do some on Medium. Most of it's on Substack now, though. And then the books, as long as Amazon will have me, the books will still keep coming.
So I'd like to talk about something that typically we're not super comfortable with, and that's talking about ourselves and promoting ourselves, or at least sharing what our strengths are. So it could be the fact that we're both Canadian, and that is part of our identity is trying to be humble and not brag or really talk too much about ourselves. But I think it's important for people to know just a little bit about what you would say is your secret weapon or your superpower. So if you think of sports teams or athletes, usually they have kind of that one secret play or that one secret skill or trait, uh, their secret sauce maybe, that they lean on when they need to, and that sets them apart from everyone else. What would you say is your superpower or your secret play?
Well, I don't know. I think consistency is my biggest thing. So, I joke a lot that I have OCD, and my OCD means that my like, as you were mentioning before, the formatting in everything I do, there's a lot of white space. It's very organized, very, that to me is just the presentation of the content is just as important as the content. And from there, being consistent with everything I do. Like, I think this morning, I believe, was issue number 925 of my daily newsletter. So it's been 925 days in a row that I publish that, and that's the most consistent I've been with anything. But I've proven to myself over and over again through different things, whether it be online or offline, that consistency is what makes or breaks pretty much anything. So, being consistent is definitely my strong point. I wish I could apply it to everything I do, but that's been my secret to, I think, the Minimalist Hustler's success, is the consistency behind it.
That's definitely a superpower. 925 days of consistency with anything uh, is amazing. So I applaud you for being able to stick to that schedule, daily commitment, especially when there's people out there that are waiting for it and counting for it to show up in their inbox. The fact that you haven't taken a sick day or missed one of your publication dates, that's really incredible. I think it speaks to the fact that you enjoy what you do, you're passionate about it, and that you take it seriously when you commit to doing something. Now, in terms of career change planning, is there any advice or tips on a more general basis that you would give to people who are considering a career change? maybe they've been forced into a career change, or maybe they're just kicking the tires. They're feeling like they want to do something different or extra, or maybe a little bit more creative than their normal 9 to 5. Any kind of general advice you'd give to people who are thinking about a career change?
I I think it depends on the specific situation more than anything. What I would suggest to everybody and anybody is to whether you want a career change or even if you don't, whether you're forced into one or you have to take a job you don't enjoy to pay the bills. I mean, everybody could say, well, if you don't enjoy it, don't do it, but it's not as simple as that. I mean, you have a set amount of skills and talent, and there's only so many positions that can accept that set talent. Sometimes the skills you've developed are not even related to things you would enjoy doing. So I'm not going to sit here and say, if you don't enjoy your job, get a job you enjoy. It's as simple as that, but it's definitely not. But what is simple is to take some time out of your schedule, whether it be 30 minutes a day or a couple hours a week or whatever you can kind of give to build yourself something on the side. um, I mean, it's never been easier there's so many, if you don't like writing, but you don't mind talking, you could do a podcast. If you like video, you could go on YouTube. And if you like writing, you could write. And it could be short. You could even just curate information for people so that you don't have to write. I mean, my newsletter, like we said before, sometimes it's as short as 30 words, and sometimes they're just headlines from or pieces from other people's content that I'm linking to. So you don't need to be a great writer, but find something that you can grow over time that's based on something you love. So, like if you love cars, start like a newsletter about cars or, a blog. I would suggest a newsletter because especially with Substack, it's kind of the equivalent of a blog, but with better options integrated. And it's just so simple to start. Within 10 minutes, you could be out writing, publishing your first piece. And even if you only publish once a week or even once every 2 weeks, over the course of 2, 3, 5, 10 years, it'll grow into something. And my guess is that once you build momentum, you're gonna spend a little bit more time on it. And if you monetize it and you start making money off of it, it'll encourage you to go more. But it's something that one will help you realize that you can do something you really like and build something. And two, it could give you options on with your career at some point. Because when I got laid off last August, if I didn't have what I had built with Minimalist Hustler, I would have no choice to have gotten another job. And it's not to say that I'm not missing the money that was coming in, because when I lost my job, I was still making Minimalist Hustler money, not as much as I am today, but I was still so it still cut everything off and I had to change accordingly. But it gave me options. And at some point maybe you're not making enough money off your side to necessarily say I don't need another I need to sorry you're not getting enough money from your side hustle that you don't need another job, but you can choose the different job that you like. You could take a pay cut because you've supplemented your income with what you're making on the side. So, I would suggest starting something and then look at where you want to be. Where do you want to go? I mean, I'm not looking for another job, but if there was a job that opened up within, hockey related, I'd be tempted to take it, especially if it was part time. And, what I'm doing with Minimalist Hustler can easily be adapted to, a lesser amount of time each week and still grow. So that's a little bit long winded, but that's basically the advice I would give.
Oh no, not at all. That's a great answer. That's I think a lot of people will find that um, inspiring and hopeful. I also think people will appreciate that it's realistic. It's not extreme. It's not reckless. It's not like you're saying, quit your job and go all in on just some zany idea that you had yesterday. So I think the approach that you suggest is welcome, and it's important to get out there because there is a lot of kind of extreme, risk-inducing behavior that gets suggested and romanticized. That's it's just not really realistic.
I would never suggest that to anybody. I mean, the amount of stress there is out there today, that's just adding extra stress to yourself that you don't need. And sure, there are success stories, but I mean, for every success story, there must be hundreds, if not thousands, of horrible stories that go with it.
Yeah, so we covered some general types of advice and some really great advice from you. Is there anything maybe a little bit more specific that you can think of in terms of advice or tips that you'd give to people starting out on their career change paths?
I don't think there's anything necessarily specific, and it kind of touches on the last point we did. But there's so many ways now that you could earn extra income on the side, and there's so many platforms out there to help you. There's like I said, if you want to write, if you could do anything you want, and you could do it about anything you want. That don't settle to follow some footsteps of some proven marketing plan of something you're going to hate every minute of and may or may not work, when you could just, the slow growth is often the best way. And it's, you could build something that you're proud of, something that you love. And one of the advantages to building something about your passion, if we take the example I said before about cars, if you love cars and you build a newsletter on cars, you're going to grow an audience. But it's not just an audience, you're going to build relationships with people, and you're going to get to meet people that like the same things that you do. You're going to search for content on the things that you love. You're going to be so connected to your passion. Sure, you can monetize it, but you don't have to, especially at first. You could just enjoy it. And then, there's, even when it comes to monetization, I wrote a book about 12 different ways you could monetize your newsletter. And you don't have to do all 12, but you could pick the ones that do it the way you like. Like, there's so many options that you don't need to do the typical marketing funnel path that, people get told about all the time. I think there's just such a bad racket sometimes with what's being presented online to attach to the making money online community and stuff like that. I kind of feel like it's my job to try and help people be like, no, you don't have to do that. You don't need to. We live in a time where you don't need to spend money to make money. You could be what I call a freepreneur. So you just use free platforms, like Substack, Gumroad, and YouTube, and whichever else, and just you start making money by building.
It is really refreshing to hear your point of view as a kind of counterbalance to a lot of the information advice that is out there. I like the idea of being a freepreneur, as you say, not going wild and investing big chunks of money that you don't have. Just doesn't make sense for a lot of people. I don't think it's realistic to encourage people to do that unless you're kind of blessed to not have to worry about money and paying bills. And by all means, if that's you, have a little fun with the money that you have to use. I guess frivolously, but for most of us, that's just not where I'm at. I've already played that game a few times. I went to university for a few years, got into debt, climbed out of that debt hole in time to get married, went into debt again, and then climbed out of that debt hole. Then you get into buying a house or just all kinds of ways to acquire debt earlier in life that just put you so far behind that it's not a game I'm interested in playing at this point. So I do appreciate you sharing your point of view that you don't have to invest a lot of money. There are tons of opportunities out there to try things that are free and low cost and low risk.
I've done the same things over time, and I've converted my wife, and still working on my kids a little bit to the minimalist mentality of like we did the whole big wedding and all that, but I'm confident that if we redid it today, it would be a whole different type of wedding. And the worst part is it would have been just as lovely, just as fun, and just as memorable, but on a whole different type of scale. So, I mean, you live, you learn, you grow, you change, and it's part of life. But, there's so many people advocating for spending money to make money because they're making money when you spend money, whether it be affiliate. Like, I'll share affiliate links, and I have no problem with that. And I'll even ask other people like that, if you teach me about a certain platform and I want to use it, I'm going to ask you for your affiliate link, and that's fine. It's just there's so many people promoting the wrong things just to get more income, and that to me doesn't sit right. It's not something I would ever do, and I don't see the point in doing that. I mean, the best part of everything I do is having relationships with people, just, like with you, with Evan, Mark, the whole ton of people, Christina and Charlrita, and so many awesome people I've met along the way. And I would never like want to leave a sour taste in anyone's mouth about anything. So, I've turned down, I accept sponsorships for my newsletters, and I try and keep them on topic and try and keep them relevant. And I've turned down some things that I don't agree with, or things that I don't think my audience would benefit from. Just, I'm not going to sell out my audience for, $60 or $80 or whatever. It's, that's short-term thinking. And to me, that's not the right way to think.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I have to say it's refreshing hearing from you and listening to you speak in ways that make it clear that you are a person of great integrity. I've always thought that since I started to follow you online, the way that you communicate with people comes across as honest, real, um, open minded. Um, it's genuine. So I applaud you for that. It's very very welcome because there is a lot of information out there that would be maybe contrary to that, where it's more focused on get ahead by all means necessary, and if you have to step on people to look after yourself, then that's what you have to do. I don't subscribe to that myself, and um, I think it's super important when there's maybe little people in our lives or not so little people in our lives that are looking towards us to set an example for them, uh, that we kind of conduct ourselves in ways um, that promote living true to our personal values and um, conducting ourselves in ways that are clear that we value integrity over the bottom line.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the easiest way to live. And that to me is part of being a minimalist. And I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, you I remember as a kid, and especially when you become a teenager and all that, you're gonna have the not the desire, but the inclination to lie a lot. And lying can get you out of so many things, but it could also add so much stress that is not worth it. And they probably just think, well, that's a parent telling me not to lie, right? And I get it, but it's just, as you grow older, it's wanting to be honest is just easier with everybody, whether it be with your spouse, whether it be with your kids, whether it be with other friends and family online. It's just, honesty is so underrated. I find it's just easier, it's more pleasant. Sometimes you got to say things that are not pleasant, but it's easier than saying the wrong thing and then having to hide it. And it's just headaches you don't need.
So Jamie, it's been a pleasure interviewing you today and learning about your career change story and your successes and your challenges along the way. Um, you provided a whole slew of uh, pieces of advice, kind of big and small. Um, Underneath it all, it's been very uh, encouraging and inspiring. I think it will be really helpful for some people, probably a lot of people who are in some way or another having to confront a career change, whether that's again something that they've chose for themselves or something that's been forced upon them. So, I really want to thank you for your time. I know you're busy, um, but I think there is a lot of value here for people that watch this video. Um, in terms of following you and finding you and keeping up to date with you, um, where's the best place or best places that you suggest people go to connect with you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on, Craig. It's been a great chat, and hopefully it does help some people. I mean, the best place to find me is there's basically two places. One, jamienorthrup.com, which may be a little harder to spell than going to minimalisthustler.com. So either one works. I mean, jamienorthrup.com is more of a link tree style kind of, where I am online. You could find me on all kinds of different platforms. And minimalisthustler.com is just to sign up for the daily newsletter. And as soon as you sign up, you get a welcome email, and I encourage in the email people to respond. And I reply to every single email I get. It's my favorite part of having a newsletter is having conversations with people. So that's definitely the best place.
Awesome. I really encourage people to sign up for Jamie's newsletter and to check out all the things he has to offer and share. And if you do sign up, I encourage you to reply to his welcome email, get a conversation started, because he does read your emails and he does reply. Um, and as you've come to learn from the time we've spent together today, he's just a really down to earth guy that's willing to share and to help other people along their journeys. And Jamie, I really appreciate again you spending your time with us today, and all the best in the future. Jamie, I hope you have a rad rest of your day.
So thank you so much, Greg.
About your career change options with confidence.